Hey everyone, this is Christina from Movie Musings. Today I'll be reviewing Feast of Love. The Netflix synopsis reads, The cast, Morgan Freeman, Greg Kinnear, Selma Blair, Radha Mitchell, and Billy Burke co-star in veteran director Robert Benton's charming ensemble drama about a coffee shop and the various lives that intersect there. Set in a small, idyllic Oregon community and based on the popular Charles Baxter novel, the film explores the depths and love and loss, joy and pain, and everything in between. And now for my input on it. There is a story about the Greek gods. They were bored, so they invented human beings. But they were still bored, so they invented love. Then they weren't bored anymore. So they decided to try love for themselves. And finally, they invented laughter, so they could stand it. I think this quote, it best sums up the film. I counted about 11 different relationships in the movie, each one with its own complexities and dynamics. But I am only going to focus on those that stood out to me for whatever reason. I'm not going to focus on the ones where it was minor, but they were still connected somehow. Morgan Freeman's character, Harry Stevenson, was involved, however involuntarily, in almost every relationship. He was observant without being judgmental, which is probably why many characters sought his advice or simply vented to him about their own frustrations. There's a funny thing about despair, I think. It leads to two paths, and whichever you choose will determine the life you lead. For example, path number 1 is where you have reached the depth of your misery and you decided to get motivated and keep going. I mean, you keep living, really living. Path 2 is to reach the depth of your despair and decide to wallow there for the rest of your bleak days. Well, every character in the movie experiences a loss which makes them choose the path they want. For example, Harry's son died a tragic and unexpected death. Harry and his lovely wife, Esther, played by Jane Alexander, would always have a sadness to them that would never fade. I mean, as loving parents, how could it? But rather than tragedy drive them apart, it brought them even closer together because they were blameless, but nevertheless suffering comrades. It's something that no one could understand but them because they went through it together. They're still going through it, and to the day they die, they're gonna keep going through it, but they're gonna go through it together. And I think that lessens the pain to an extent. I'd like to think so. They had the kind of relationship that many can only dream of being in. They loved each other fiercely, and when they fought, even when they fought, they had the kind of relationship that I'd like to think that every other relationship in the film, even to the slightest of degrees, modeled after. They just understood each other. They enjoyed each other's company, and I very much enjoyed Morgan Freeman's ability. His slightly raspy but incredibly soothing voice as a narrator, or when he was speaking to his wife, or any other character. It was perfect for this movie, I think. The overall theme of this film is that love has to triumph all, even fate. For example, love kept Esther and Harry together, as it did Oscar and Chloe, played by the intense duo Toby Hemingway and Alexa Davalos. When Romeo and Juliet declared their unconditional love for each other after their very brief encounter, we bought it. We totally bought it. With Oscar and Chloe, once again, we buy it. Sure, they're young, passionate, and kind of in their own realities, but you will believe and you will cry. It's funny because my words sound like a threat, but it's more of a promise of the believability of their performances. And then we move on to the hopeless romantic Bradley, played by Greg Kinnear. He's further proof that love does triumph all. Even twice being cheated on by wife number 1 and wife number 2, still, Bradley refuses to give up on love. It's not always easy following your heart, and that's another theme of this movie. Which path to take, the path not taken, and is it fair to live your life just wondering, what if I had left, or what if I had stayed? Well, with him, it's not limited to him, but using him as the most hopeless romantic of all these characters, it's not always easy to follow your heart, especially when it's been broken a few times, but it's equally terrifying to start all over yet again. Bradley needs all the bravery he can muster because he loves love. Feast of Love is a fitting title. All the pain people inflicted on each other, and all the joy, all was in the name of love. To some extent, or, some very obvious, some very subtle. As Bradley aptly put it, God doesn't hate us, Harry, or he wouldn't have made our hearts so brave. As a fellow romantic, and as just someone who enjoys the complexities of so many relationships, I give this movie an A. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Christina from Movie Musings, and hope to hear from you soon. Bye.